Okay, hi, my name's Roger. I'm one of the co-founders of XR, and this video is about mass mobilization. It's a sort of introduction video, and hopefully there's going to be a bit of a series about them. And if you're not sure what mass mobilization is, basically, it's a big word for saying how to develop Extinction Rebellion movement and all the ins and outs that goes into that. And this video is just going to be a little taster. I've got here Lee and Cazzie, who have been involved in developing groups and setting them up and what have you. So they're going to be talking a little bit to give you an idea of what could or should happen. And then if you're interested, you can see other videos. We can do something, I think, on setting up groups, another video on developing groups, and one or two other videos about different types of people, getting things organized. So it's a little bit of a series, which is exciting. And okay, so I just want to give a little introduction to where we're at in Extinction Rebellion and what it's about. As most people listening to this video probably know, the idea of Extinction Rebellion is to respond to the absolutely dire climate crisis, and the particular way we wish to deal with that is through mass civil disobedience, and that involves many people peacefully and respectfully breaking the law to bring the crisis to the attention of the authorities. And the way that that is most effective, of course, is by lots of people engaging in it. So if you want lots of people to engage in campaigning and civil disobedience, then you have to have a big movement. And if you have to have a big movement, you need to work out how to do that, right? People don't just suddenly turn up to groups one day. They have to be contacted and informed and all the rest of it. So at the moment, we're making this video, in May 2020. So we've been going now for about a year and a half or so. And as everyone knows, Extinction Rebellion has been very successful in mobilizing all around the world and bringing people in. And that process is involved in setting up groups. And there's lots of experience now in how to do that. And what we've been doing in the UK, where we're situated at the moment, is trying to look at how that process has worked and how to make it better and more organized so that we can do more mobilization more effectively in the future. So that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about in this video, just to get a flavor for how this sort of system works when it's quite organized. Okay, so I'm going to mainly ask Lee and Cazzie here, their experience. So the thing to say is that what we've done in the UK is people have very kindly come forward to say, yeah, I'll work full-time or part-time or whatever on developing groups and setting groups up. And we've worked out ways of doing that. And Lee and Cazzie have been involved in this over the last few months. So I'm going to allow them to give you a taste of what it actually means to do this sort of work. But first of all, I'm just going to sort of ask them who they are, so you sort of know they haven't just appeared out of nowhere. So Lee, just tell us, yeah, when you found out about the climate crisis, how you got involved in Extinction Rebellion, and a little bit about your journey to the point of appearing on this video.
Thanks, Roger. Well, back in 2001, 2002, I was involved in a sort of community arts project. I had a fairly respectable job at university, and I would spend my spare time working with local artists, putting on projects to regenerate the community. That led us onto a lot of festival work. So between 2001, 2004, really, that was the start of my interest, my passion. Since then, I'm currently employed as a waste management operative. So I work 2 days a week at a waste management site, but I spend the rest of the time still doing community projects. I'm an environmentally friendly entertainer, so I will show films, I will DJ, I can go into schools and give talks and things like that. So when XR came along, I felt a lot of relief because like many of us, we've all been beating our head against a brick wall, waiting for someone to stand up and take action on this. So After my local group started, which was approximately a year ago, I was spending half my time doing press releases for them, doing graphics. I turned up at their events with a speaker. I would really contribute as much as possible to getting my local group started. And then I had a conversation with the county coordinator, and I said to her, is there any other roles I could get involved with? Really, I've helped set up my local group. I want to contribute some more. And she directed me to the mobilisation team. So it was pretty cool transition, really, from being involved at the start of a local group in May to being introduced to mass mobilisation sort of December time, and then to today's video.
Yeah, great. So, like, your story is the same as loads of people's stories, really, as you have a fairly regular job and you're aware of what's happening, and you basically used the skills that you developed in your regular work, as it were, to help set up, first of all, a group locally, and then move on to this mobilisation work, right? So, I think that's what many people have done, and are putting their skills into XR nowadays, right? So I'm just going to ask Cazzie, where did you first hear about the climate crisis, and how did that develop into involvement in XR?
Thanks, Roger. I think many people of my generation in the early 90s, it became a big thing to be part of Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth. I was squatting at the time in London, knew a lot of people, lived with a lot of people, had a lot of influences. And so that was my journey in the green movement, if you like. It wasn't until I became a mother almost 17 years ago that I really began to notice what was going on in the world. And I was very concerned about it, like most people were. So when Extinction Rebellion came along about over a year ago, it was aha moment for me, a movement that cares and almost has a psychological contract with myself, that had the same sort of values and principles, but also was doing something, and that was really important. And as much as my heart was into Greenpeace and to Friends of the Earth and various other movements, I felt that Extinction Rebellion was more on point. They seemed to have that sense of urgency, which I also felt as well. So during the April Rebellion in London, myself and my daughter rocked up outside Houses of Parliament, and we danced and we sang with the police officers and with XR protesters. It was an amazing experience being part of a People's Assembly as well, because I'd never even heard of that before. So that was incredibly inspiring, and being around thousands of people that had the same attitude as yourself was beautiful. And thereafter, I got involved locally with my group in Swansea, and I went to the next action that was in July in Cardiff, and I was more involved on a deeper level with the well-being tent. And as a first aider, I spent 2 days helping out that way. And then on the third day, they put a shout out for people to sleep underneath the boat outside Cardiff Castle. And I was just up for it. And it was a wonderful experience. Sleeping on the floor with people you'd never met before, and even a few homeless people, actually, which we kind of adopted over the 3 days. And that was really lovely. People who had nothing, but who were willing to sleep next to us and say, what you're doing is amazing. And they just loved the fact that we treated them like humans. They said, you're the first amount of people to respect us on a one-to-one and not look down on us. And that's when I realized I was onto something special here, that everybody was on the same level. And then during the October Rebellion in London, I was part of the Rebel Riders. Loved that. And also being part of the Bristol and the Welsh rebels. I spent 14 hours underneath a lorry, locked onto a lorry outside the Home Office. And the care and love that I received from the well-being rebels, I mean, I didn't eat so well. You know, they just said, "What do you want, Cazzie?" "Oh, I'll have some chips," you know, or "I'll have some chocolate." Yeah, it was amazing, you know. So I got deeper and deeper because I never felt I was doing enough. So my journey in XR was very, very gradual, you know. So from singing and dancing and holding placards in the April Rebellion to eventually getting arrested outside BBC studios in London because myself and a few other Welsh rebels glued ourselves on, to spending over 26 hours in custody, which I thought I would never do because I've never broken the law in my life. I haven't even got points on my license. So, but I went in because there was a gentleman that came on tour who said, just see it as a bit of a regen, you know, see it as a, you know, somewhere where you can chill out and do yoga and meditation. And that's exactly what I did, you know, and actually it wasn't that bad, you know. And then afterwards, at the end of December, I was working in health and social care. I'm a qualified youth worker by trade. But at that time I was supporting chronic schizophrenics. And I felt that I still wasn't doing enough. And so I thought I have to give up my job and I have to work for XR. I got an email from XR asking for anybody with experience of outreach, which I had. And yeah, I went along to the training and I haven't looked back. And yeah, so that's my story.
That's amazing. Thanks. Yeah. And again, it's a story of many people, you know, starting off having that sense that something needs to happen, and XR comes along, and it's not, I think you're right, it's like XR is not just a movement, but it's like community of care. It's like a bunch of people that want to change the world, but also want to change the world in a particular way, right? Which is based upon respect and connection. And I think this is what's enabled it, of course, to grow, is not just the reality of the climate crisis, but treating each other and our opponents in a particular way. And I think that this is part of the challenge, isn't it, of mobilizing, is how to mobilize in a way that's supportive and bottom up, as it were, and also gets the job done. And as we all know, there's a little bit of a tension around that, and as there is in many things. But that's what I'm going to move on to now, is just asking you a little bit about your experience. And I should say that just to put a little bit of context in this, is in the UK, we set up a group called Mass Mobilisation, which is now more being integrated more into sort of the regions. But the general idea was people work full time, helping people to develop their groups and set up new groups. So we've gained quite a rich experience. So I'm just going to ask you both about it, because both of you were recruited, as it were, to do this work. So you're the guys that sort of the semi-experts on it. And I suppose, Lee, yeah, how have you found it then, talking to groups, having this sort of tension that you want to develop groups and set them up, and at the same time you need to build this trust and connection between people? And how's that worked out in your experience?
Well, very good question. I was a part-time worker, so I wasn't in the situation where I could go around and address each group individually. So I would set up a meeting, giving people about 6 weeks notice, and hope that as many groups as possible would attend that meeting. So I covered 2 counties, which was Devon and Dorset, and there was approximately 19 groups in those 2 counties. So over a period of about 4 or 5 events, I actually managed to speak with every single group in that county. And from those events that I organised, I obviously had a list of names of people that were really keen. So, for example, the first event that I organised was in my local group, where I felt most confident delivering materials that I hadn't delivered before. And approximately 40 people turned up to that event. There were half a dozen Extinction Rebellion groups in the room. Some groups that had heard about it online but weren't able to attend, I was able to direct them to other mobilisers in the region. So that worked really well. And by the end of that event, yes, I had about a dozen names, people that were either already doing fantastic outreach, people that wanted to do outreach, or there was people that had contributed and put their hand up and put forward really valuable ideas. So these were the key people that I then started to build a relationship with. So we had at least a dozen people after the first event, and then I went and repeated that event, and I would pick up another 10 or 12 names. So we started building up a network of really good outreach people. What I would say is that the methods that we had, we weren't going into groups as a sort of know-it-all. You know, we were prepared to listen to them. So if people were doing fantastic outreach and it wasn't on our list of activities that we were promoting, that's absolutely fine. We would listen to them, and we would pass that on to the relevant group in XR. This was how we started to share knowledge and experience from all the local groups. But I mean, it was incredibly valuable. But the groups are all unique, so they very much reflect the area that they're from. Some of them hundreds of members, others a handful of members. So you really have to be prepared to listen and to treat each one as completely unique, really. And they are. It's a fantastic way to contribute and to build the movement.
Yeah, great. So yeah, I think that's what we all found, wasn't it? Is there's no one thing that fits all. That you have to go to the group, and the fundamental thing is listening to that group to find out where they're at, and then offering, you know, a range of different things, or maybe they've got their own thing that they're doing, which is great. And building those relationships, getting those contacts. I think that's a crucial part of this, isn't it? And getting a relationship with those individuals that want to get things on the go, and then helping them, you know, make progress. So yeah, that's great. So Cazzie, I mean, how have you found it in Wales? You know, building these relationships. You know, you just went into it like from not doing anything, and then suddenly you've got the whole of Wales to develop, as it were. So tell us a little bit about how that went.
Thanks, Roger. It was a bit daunting initially because 22 counties in Wales and geographically very, very spread out. It was a bit of a challenge. And you're absolutely right, Lee, Roger. It is mass mobilisation or outreach work is you go to where the people are, you meet them where they are, and it is about individuality. So I started off in my local group in Swansea, which is the second largest population in Wales, and I kind of used them as my guinea pigs, if you like. So it was looking at the group and realising where the strengths and the weaknesses were, you know, what resources they already had and that you could build upon. So that was really important in learning and understanding about those relationships of trust. Because if they had known me so well, they probably would have gone, okay, well, who is this woman? What does she want? You know, and so, and I think thereafter, I think it was really valuable, especially with the other groups, that we organised the mass mobilisation tour, because that took a lot of pressure off. And from there, actually, I managed to build amazing relationships of trust that meant that my outreach was incredibly easy after that. But like I said, what happens in Swansea, which is in a city, is completely different that happens in the middle of Wales, which is completely rural. So not all the 7 mass mobilisation methods would be applicable. And I think my most successful meetings I had with groups is to actually put it to them and say, right, okay, we need to build a movement. We need more people with us, you know, standing with us in the streets. How would you get people from your area on board? That's not only what we call the sleeping rebels, rebels that are part of XR but are not active, but also about getting new people on board. So it was really important that they themselves had the autonomy to have that freedom to reach their own communities. Because as you rightly said, this is a grass up movement, it's not top down. And I think working on those relationships of trust, I feel in Wales we're very, very lucky that we have quite a community feel. So, for instance, my county in Swansea is very near to Neath Talbot and Carmarthen, for instance. So the sharing of resources, so that's not only rebels, not only, for instance, Red Rebel Brigade or Samba bands. So it is very much a community-led kind of, I can't find the word for it really, a community-led activity. And actually recently I've realized that even after the sadness that's gone on recently, and we haven't been that active, we've actually come together and more bonded, and I'm having really exciting conversations, built on those relationships of trust that I developed. And obviously they do take time, you can't magic them up over a couple of weeks. I've been nurturing these relationships and them with me for a couple of months. And now I feel like, we've got this huge movement in Wales, and it's incredibly inspiring, and it's been an absolute privilege, and the amount of people that I've met, wow, the commitment, the passion, it's absolutely gobsmacking, yeah. So I'm incredibly lucky, and I love doing what I'm doing because every day is different, and every day is unique, just like the people that I've met on my journey. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I always think that as well, because I spend a lot of my time on Zoom calls and things like that, and it all becomes a little bit abstract, doesn't it? And when you get out and realise there's these amazing people in all these different towns around the UK and of course around the world as well, it is an incredibly humbling experience, because you just realise how amazing human beings can be when they connect and decide to do this, massively important collective project we set ourselves. So yeah, I totally get that as well. It's always sort of overwhelming. So yeah, and also I think you're right that it's very different in a city like Swansea to a rural area, and it sounds like it's great to do this sort of touring and start with your own group and build that up. And again, the big theme here is about building relationships with people. So, I think that's going to be enough in this video. We're just giving a little taster, as I see it, of this work. And if you're watching this video and you're interested in doing mass mobilization work or outreach work or whatever you want to call it, developing your movement, there's an email, and you can contact us if you're in the UK, if you want to join in with this sort of activity. Or there's stuff on, I think, the Extinction Rebellion website, all the resources about the different mechanisms and methods. There's quite a lot to it, as Lee and Cazzie have said. So, and of course you can watch the next videos. But I just want to thank Lee and Cazzie for propelling themselves into greatness, as it were, by being on this video. And I wish everyone the best of luck. Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.